YouTube. Hey, you know what? Let's turn on my private Facebook as well. Hey, how's it going, Ruben?
Going well. I thought I maybe had joined as a viewer because I was like, "Is this live yet?" And, and I'm like, "Wow, that was quick."
Well, if you end up checking my Facebook, I think it's about a 25-second delay. So
yeah, that's there we go. I just got the notification. Chill Conversations is going live. I'm feeling the change. I'm really feeling the change of the seasons more than anything, I think, right now. That's definitely evident in the air. It went from super hot summer to much, much cooler really quickly, and it stayed there for last week.
Yeah, we here in Vancouver. So you're in California, whereabouts?
I am in the San Jacinto mountain range near Palm Springs, the mountains of Palm Springs in the very high desert.
Okay. Yeah, so here in Vancouver, it went from our hottest days on record to what would be called a false fall, I think. A false. How's that? False? No? Horrible, eh?
It's a good thing we're not a pun show. Let's just say that. We don't know what we are, but we're not a pun
I've got
show.
nothing but dad jokes.
That's my favorite. That's my classic. I love a good dad joke.
So yeah, the smoke has come in, and I mean it's a pretty big hot topic here. Yeah, it dropped the temperature like crazy. But
from a viewpoint of someone in Canada, because in the States, of course, I feel like a lot of the American West Coast have been dealing with intense smoke for the last week. I first smelled it a week ago, and it smelled like campfire. I thought the neighbor's house was on fire here. And then on Wednesday, most of my colleagues that I work with are in San Francisco. The sky was fire orange. Someone brought me outside on a Zoom call, and it was crazy. But is there part of it in Canada is what you're feeling? As I've been feeling somewhat, not directed at me, but there's definitely some American animosity. Like I feel like this is the American smoke is how it's being treated, and sort of like I mean, I was reading an article to the same extent where a truck with Texas plates was vandalized with "fuck Trump" and stuff in Victoria. That was a little upsetting, I thought, because it was actually a Canadian who was coming back. He's just working, and his truck had an American license plate, visiting his children last 3 months in Canada, and his new grandson, and his truck was vandalized. And that scares me for when ultimately I want to go to my home up there.
Well, you can pre-spray paint your car to say I don't like Trump, maybe, or just change your plates. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate stuff.
Bernie 2020.
That's right. Yeah. that wasn't a pun, right? Sorry.
No, that would be real. I feel like that would get me out of getting my car vandalized in Vancouver,
right, yeah.
If I had Bernie 2020 on it with California plates.
Just a quick hello to Jen Fit on Periscope. Said a little quick hello to us there. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so we are getting it. I would say the sky has jaundice. It's not quite that bright apocalyptic red that I was seeing from San Francisco, but it's gray. It's or brown, or I'm not even sure what color that is, to be honest. Yeah, so we're seeing it, smelling it, tasting it. It's definitely affecting our work stuff, and yeah, it's interesting. There's a bit of a mix going on here in Vancouver. We not only do we have the smoke, we have an infestation of moths. Yeah,
right. I've been reading that. Yes.
So I was gonna say, can I show a quick picture of this? Is that okay?
Yeah. Can you show a photo?
Let's see.
This is what we're doing. Let's
Chrome
see.
Tab.
What I thought was interesting. Can I talk while you? Oh,
absolutely.
Here we go. Look at this. What do we have here?
So this is there's a video here. Moths having huge party in Metro Vancouver. Experts say of ongoing breakdown. I'm going to call out CTV here and say that they are playing off of the parties going on around COVID. So I think they're just trying to get in some SEO here. But here's the pictures. It's literally like this. My backyard wall is covered in them. It's insane. They're coming through a fan we have in our window and just kind of collecting up and spitting out. It's insane. It's pretty. So I think we've covered 4 of the 7 signs, that Debbie Moore movie from years ago, or if someone's familiar with the.
Oh, right. We're just talking about the various plagues.
Yeah, well, there's I don't know. I'm not sure what they are. I think plague is just one of them. All plagues. So, whether it's moths or.
Well, that's what it feels like with the smoke, that it's just an environmental manifestation of sort of what feels like it's happening socially, politically, in some ways, at least here in the United States. And well, I guess Europe too. I mean, we have Belarus and everything happening over there.
That's right.
But like so much of the world has like crazy things happening going on right now in many ways. And then you throw a pandemic on top of it, and it feels like the environment's sort of responding to that. And it's that manifestation of sort of, I don't want to use end of days but it does have that
evolution,
like,
change,
yeah, like
evolve.
It's hard to deny climate change, I feel like, at this point, yet shockingly, it's still happening.
Yeah, it's true.
I've talked to a lot of people in the States that are just saying our governments need to be doing a better job of clear cutting and raking our forests, which is echoing, something politicians here said a few years ago. That doesn't really seems like you're missing the bigger issue.
Yeah. Might be a little off target.
What's the plan? Or if the smoke continues there, has there been anything work-wise or the city set up there to try and promote some safety or some clean air areas?
Those conversations are happening. We're doing crew talks to make sure people understand where the hazards lay, how to take care of themselves, take micro breaks, that kind of stuff. It's always top of mind for us.
I love the micro break. All about the micro break. I like to take a series of micro breaks every hour.
That's right.
Often every minute. It can turn into a very larger macro break or a smaller macro break. I don't know.
I think you just call that a break.
Maybe it's never starting. If you're always on break, are you really starting? That's procrastination, actually.
It's interesting. And we're in, let's see, what does this say here? I'm going to throw another one up for us here.
Mm-hmm.
Second worst air quality in the world. I think we're on the 6th day of warnings right now, so it's pretty intense. Wow. You were saying about people saying this is the American smoke. I mean, BC's done its fair share. We had quite a few unfortunate fires in a few years back and a couple years in a row there. I think this is the epitome of the Northwest Pacific kind of relationship stuff here. Vancouver has second worst air quality. Only Portland has higher poor air quality, and it's like that ongoing Portland, Seattle, Vancouver not competition, but just kind of like we're all into the same things and we're all kind of like always following the same trends and innovations and stuff. And I guess air quality is one of those things too. But
there's no winners. There's no
winners in this one. That's right. It's not a race to some sort of winning point. But this is what it looks like for us. It's not that red, but it actually just looks like smoke. It's insane.
Yeah, this is, I guess, that's more what it is here now, I guess, on a daily basis. After a week, it sort of feels more like our normal, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really scary, especially because some of the fires are actually really close here.
I was going to ask you, like, is there anything really, like, how close is it? Like, that's hitting home right there. There's nothing funny about that.
So where this home is, in particular, is it's so high risk for fire that the insurers do not insure. You have to go through a state program for fire insurance. It's really intense. It's just considered one. After like 2.5 years ago when I moved here, there was a big fire. I was actually in Canada at the time for a wedding, and the entire town was vacated. It's scary. It was a little scary, I think, in general.
Of course, yeah.
And it continues to be. There was 2 fires nearby. I have this beautiful photo of a sunset where the sunset's hitting the smoke. So it's this beautiful orange smoke but this is from a massive, 20,000 acre fire. And then I'm near the gender reveal fire. That's what I'm calling it. That's the nearest fire, really impacting the air here. But LA is doing much worse than we are, which is unfortunate, but I'm happy to be here. What can I say? Right. I mean, the air is a little bit better. We're in the mountains, but it's still rough.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. I mean, it's it's interesting how many intense things there are on our consciousness. Last few weeks or last few months, I'm not sure how you want to look at it, but everybody's affected differently by different topics. Certain things trigger certain people, but I feel like you can take a pick right now. I mean, no matter how balanced you are, you can probably find something that's unnerving in some way or another to you.
Yeah, there's no shortage. That's true.
So
I think though there's a lot of opportunities to do interesting projects though, and like I think we mustn't default. I think that's the big concern that I have is everyone's just defaulting and getting over social distancing or physical distancing, whatever you want to call it, and everything's sort of relaxed to the point where we, oh, the risk isn't so bad for me. I'm healthy, and it's fine if I would have got it. I've heard these are all sort of refrains I've heard recently, and it really concerns me, I think, because it's sort of, well, I haven't gotten it yet, so I'm not going to get it. But it's sort of like, are you just going to keep taking the not some very elementary precautions to avoid catching something? And I think a lot of it's a false sense of confidence for a lot of people because they're going, well, I haven't got it, but I'm thinking to myself, like, well, you just haven't gotten it yet. In many reasons, that's just luck, especially how the lack of precautions a lot of people are taking.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to become complacent with anything when it goes on for long enough. And absolutely, I mean, I'm with you on the, hey, listen, you still need to take steps. It's not really just about you, obviously, like we're all you, the one person. And at the same time, I can also understand people coming at that like that. Like it's, then you got mods, you got smoke, you got all these other things you got to focus on. Maybe you're worried about your job. And juggling all of it, but put the mask on, keep the distance. That's kind of like the standards on that. But that's where, I don't know, is that kind of like, do you know people who were really vigilant and have kind of put it to the wayside, or what's your experience with that?
I think everyone's slipping a bit in ways that they hadn't been before because this is what, even though arguably you could say in some areas in particular, the risks are higher now than they were a few months ago when they wouldn't have considered taking the unnecessary, or what they view as unnecessary precautions, but I see as necessary precautions if they're going to go out and socialize or they're going to do things that they wouldn't have done a few months ago because this was all really scary. And statistically, it's kind of it's scarier. But they're going, yeah, well, it's all right if I do this or I do that. And it's like, I think that's just a sort of a tired narrative. But we have to be a little bit more creative on how to do things. But I think, people also need to learn how to connect in new ways as well. Because I think reverting to the old ways, at least for the short term, it could be, is a bit reckless. I think it is reckless.
So those are both great points. And I want to kind of explore it in two different ways. So one, here, especially in BC, numbers are continuing to be high. It's kind of like there's this constant narrative of like, oh, we're on the verge of not having a handle on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So are we on the verge of a lockdown again? Right. So there's that kind of conversation. The second aspect of that one is, so what do we do? Let's talk about some ways to kind of keep that, the right attitude up, keep your mental health straight, and continue to be vigilant in that sense, and like connect with people and whatever it is that keeps you whole. Yeah, I don't know if I believe we're going to go into another lockdown. I think that I think BC's kind of figured out where their thresholds are. And I think a lot of that has to do with actually healthcare and being able to hold the capacities. So I'm not sure we're going to see that. I don't know. I'm not a professional, but part of me thinks it might be good for us because it's sort of another thwap in the back. You're probably familiar with Dr. Bonnie Henry. What I feel like she's been doing for like the last 3 months is like, that old driving the car and looking back in the back seat, like, don't make me turn this car around. And
but it's a matter of time until she's gonna have to turn the car around. I
think she just did.
People romanticize.
I think she just did.
No, she did. I think,
right.
But I was going.
Anyway.
But I was. I mean, for me, as somebody who's in California, I'm going. You had nightclubs open?
Yeah, right.
What? How did that make sense at any point right now, where people wouldn't be in close proximity with loud music? And you get alcohol in the mix. It seems like that's just waiting to trouble. But I understand there's the economic interests and there's a lot of pressure from various groups and there's a lot of money behind that. And so is it all medically and scientifically driven? Of course not. There's all sorts of interests.
Yeah. Is it medically and scientifically driven? Of course not. I probably agree with that statement, but I feel like it's probably balanced with that, right? I don't feel like she's my impression of her is that we haven't seen her pandering to pressure from anywhere, right? It's sort of like, this is the balanced approach. We're not going to go full throttle. We're not going to start locking, like really clamping down on people. I don't want to use the word lockdown, clamping down on people.
But I think basic members, I'm just going to interject because I agree. I've watched it on the peripheral, so I see it, but I've also seen sort of the romanticizing of Bonnie Henry. And some of it true? Well, she's, sort of been this very inspiring figure, taking a very calm, rational approach to the COVID strategy in BC. On the other hand, I've seen her and I go, well, you haven't implemented masks in small contained spaces like grocery stores. There's situations where social distancing isn't possible in an aisle. And without making masks mandatory at a government level, putting it on the business is just reckless because it's a risk exposing employees. And I say that as a state that has terrible numbers, but considering the amount of testing we have, which is really a lot higher than Canada, masks to me seem like a minimum you'd want in a tight indoor space, especially a business.
Well, perhaps I would say, first of all, she's not making the decisions on her own. So, I mean, maybe we have been romanticizing her, but where I think that romanticism balances out is that I think she has been good for the people. I think that's why people were listening. And I think come summer, we've had a lot of things let loose here, just like I said, the whole getting kind of complacent with it. And I think that's why she's coming back and saying, that's sort of the analogy. It's like, I've given you all these chances. I was really trying not to go this route. Yeah, and some people think I'm crazy for having clubs open, but now we're done. So fun's over, summer's over, school's starting. We got to kind of think of this differently. School's coming, you can't stop that. So let's take away the other things that were off the balance. So I think that's where that comes from. I'm not sure I agree that we need to put in masks in small spaces from the government level. I think it's like a leader, right? It's like you go into a workplace, you model, the more rules you put, the more likely you have to have pushback or that kind of uprising. So, I wonder if that was kind of the approach, is like, hey, let's just show them what the right thing was. And then at the point where it looks like we can't, lean on that, then that's where we'll say, okay, this is the change in that. So I think that's sort of where it is. I think there's been a bit of romanticism around her. I mean, she's got an amazingly great background. She's the right person for this particular job in this particular time. And I think her way of being, as you know, I'm into talking about ways of being. It is.
That's the name of the podcast.
No, we don't have a name. We're just chill conversation.
I'm joking. That would be a great name. Something actually. Wait, have you used that as a name for something?
Well, my coaching company is called Being Fully, right? So, and it's all about leadership coaching, and it's about
ways of being
and learning how to, like, your own way of being, so that you can step into this stuff. And so I really look at her and I go, I think she's showing us how we need to be, and she's vigilant. She comes out every day. She hasn't slept in months, all that stuff. Those stories we hear about what a hero she is in that sense. Yes, it's romanticism, but at the same time, I think she's showing us vigilance. She's showing us, so I don't know. I'm a fan. Obviously, it's not.
I'd like her to get some sleep, though. Imagine how effective she'd be.
I think she should take a break. I think she should go to the cottage and turn her news off, and not answer her cell phone. I talk to my leaders and even my people above me, like, hey, you need to take a break. I need to tell myself to take a break too. So I think that's one of the things we can talk about in terms of stepping into the next segue of those two aspects.
What a great solid transition.
I wish we had written that.
Why you're the pro. This is why you're the pro. Do you have these transitions?
So your experience, you've been working from home, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working from home for the last several years, but I used to do a lot of travel, and I traveled to an office in San Francisco, and but I would travel a lot for work. But I was officially based from home. In the last 6.5, 7 months, I've been doing this solely from home, and all my travel stopped. Last year alone, I was on over 100 flights just for work. This year, prior to COVID, it was 20. So the year was actually set to be even busier this year in terms of travel.
Up until COVID
20 until beginning of March, when I started canceling all my upcoming travel.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you had 10 more months, okay, I got you.
Just keeping up at that pace, right. It was set to be even busier. I'm not missing the work travel. I do miss pleasure travel. I do miss face-to-face things that I don't do now, since I really sort of follow social distancing. But I go out to the grocery store once a week, and I go to the post office, and I'm happy to go down to the desert for a grocery run to Trader Joe's or whatever. But I don't, that's sort of just that's I think a monthly activity at this point. But it's nice to be in the woods and go on lots of walks in nature and things that I used to really make an effort. I used to have to make that effort when I was in the city, where you're like, okay, it's a day off. I'm going to drive and I'm going to go out to nature and I'll spend the afternoon there. And, it's fun being able to be so immersed in it. You take it for granted a bit. And every walk that I take, just even with the dog in the morning, which would just have been a neighborhood walk if I had been in the city, is truly a nature walk that people would spend a lot of time driving to. So for me, that's always, I haven't forgotten that, even though I've become a little bit immune to my surroundings, which I think is human nature in some ways. Like, you move into a new place, you're like, wow, this new place is amazing. And after a few months there, you still know it's amazing, but the shininess is worn off. And it's just your place. And it's amazing for all, the same reasons, but it's not as shiny.
I say that to myself about Vancouver itself, right? Like, it's such a beautiful city. To the west of me, there's water. To the north of me, there's mountains. To the right of, to the east of me, there's all kinds of terrain, depending how far you're going. But it's like, it's a beautiful city I live in. But I have to remind myself. And yet we still make time. We have to make time to go out to the nature. So it must be great just being able to, the time you have is there. You're already there, right? You're already in the nature.
It's great. I don't have to drive anywhere, but I would like to drive somewhere at this point.
Right. Okay. So let's explore that then. So tell me a little bit about let's start with your challenges, and then let's talk a little bit about where the positives are on that, and what you're doing with the challenges you have, and I'll share as well.
Sure. So I'm very remote. There's a nice amount of land around me and lots of space between the neighbors. So it's not like country suburban. It's definitely very country.
Okay.
But I'm a social person. I'm a extroverted introvert. So I like a lot of time to myself, but I do like a lot of socializing. I still, and I'm a dual citizen. I live down here. I still have my home in Vancouver. I miss my home in Vancouver. I mean, in the sense, I actually have a residence in Vancouver. I miss it. I haven't been there since February.
Okay.
It's not easy to go back and forth with quarantine, and I respect why quarantine's in effect, and I don't see that this is a time for needless travel. So I don't see the fact that I'm like, oh, I miss my Canadian home as a good enough excuse to run back, unless I was planning to be there for 6 months right now. And there's no reason I couldn't be, but I feel like in the country, even though Vancouver is relatively safe as far as an urban area, I feel a little more free with more space out here in the country and being able to work out here. I feel very fortunate for that. So that's sort of the good stuff in context of everything that's going on.
Right.
On the flip side, I'm here. I don't have someone remotely close that it's like, I used to love going for coffee with friends in the morning, for example. You're not going for coffee with a friend in the morning anymore, partially because I'm remote, partially just because I think that that's a silly thing to do, unless there was a reason you're already meeting up with someone, like we're going to do a social distancing hike and we'll bring our coffees. That would be one thing. But just to go and sit at a cafe seems a little ridiculous right now. For all the obvious reasons. So, but I miss that? Of course, but I don't know that I would be doing that if I was in Vancouver either. I don't think I would. You might have a coffee in a park with a friend. That would sort of be the equivalent.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I see a lot of people in the park having coffee for sure. The parks are really busy, which is great. And, but I see a lot of people in the coffee shops. Now we've done a lot of outdoor, table setups, right? So there's lots of outdoor dining space, so that we see people. It's really evident. They're really in your face. They've taken up parts of the road, so that's pretty obvious too. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not spending a lot of time at a restaurant. We did go on a little date, my partner and I, a couple weeks back. We were quite separated from people when we went out for just a drink and a little bit of a snack. So yeah, so I can hear you there. I haven't really thought about that, but when I bike to work, there's already people at coffee shops in the morning. It's crazy.
Right. And to me, like biking to work, obviously, that's just your mode of transportation. It's a great way to get around. If I was going on a hike with a friend and I'd say meet a coffee or meet me outside, but to actually go with that's sort of what I was talking about earlier. Deciding to go to a cafe and meet up with a friend right now seems to me to be introducing needless risk into your life in a real way.
Right.
And I know it sounds You're talking going to a cafe for a coffee? Yes, absolutely. Going to a cafe for coffee, I think it's needless. Just grabbing a coffee and sitting outside and maintaining a little bit of distance, that seems to make sense. That's good. But I think people are exhausted. They're exhausted from the rules, the parameters of what to do. And it's hard, but I realized that was part of my decision was should I go back to Vancouver and spend time in my Canadian home right now through all this, whether it was like during the actual sort of lockdown quarantine or before or after, is I'm like, I wouldn't really be seeing friends any more necessarily than I am here. And I would feel the need to go out more because it's the city. So I felt like I think I'm just going to stay here for now. But I actually was reading they're going to be reevaluating in Canada, looking at the data they have because they have a lot of data now after 6 months and having a 14-day quarantine going based on our information of if people were diagnosed and they saw that they had this based on the tests X amount of time. They said they might be able to reduce quarantine to like 7 days or something or 3 days, and with some mandatory testing as part of that. I'm like, okay, that would be smart.
I thought they'd made it. I thought they'd made it 10 already. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought.
No, it's still 14, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Unless that's super recent.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, that's So what would you say are some of the things that you're doing differently because of COVID that you're enjoying that are actually positive? Obviously, the outdoor space, that's one of them.
Yeah, I'm enjoying spending a lot of time in my home, making it my home, and cooking in my home, and like on a volume and frequency of which I've never done before. Like I used to always, we used to always make a meal once or twice a week. You'd really cook something up, but now it's like sort of like 4 or 5 nights a week. It's more often than not you're really cooking something up. It's a true treat to get takeout from somewhere.
Have you baked bread?
I haven't, but my partner has baked bread.
Okay, perfect. Someone has.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh no, we have multiple sourdough starters going in the fridge at this very moment, and the caliber of the sourdough has been consistently rising. No pun intended. Yeah, I'll be here all night, folks. Try the vegan veal. Vegan veal. But yeah, no, I think so. There's been all of that, and that's been fun, and if I had been up here earlier, I think I would have done more gardening and things with food because I used to really enjoy that sort of thing. And that's something that I hope to do up here next year. I was even thinking about getting a few, they're legal in California, just like they are in Canada, a few marijuana plants as a winter hobby. I thought that'd be a fun little, guy 3 or something down in the desert and water them and watch them die. But I've never done that. I used to grow food, so I'm like, I think it can't be too different than food, but it would be something fun to try for the winter.
Might be a little easier.
It might be easier. Everyone makes it sound like it's particularly complicated, and you don't want to get bugs and this and that. But I don't know. Everyone thinks it's complicated to grow food. It is a weed. Weeds should grow plentiful. I'm going to throw the seeds around the yard. And we'll see what comes springtime.
I'll be complaining about how much there is later.
Yeah. What do I do with all this?
Oh, geez, look at all the growth.
Yeah.
Let me just get some context on your situation. It will snow, right? Like you're gonna endure snow, right?
We get snow, but it's not super. Like it's not Canadian winter. We'll get it gets down to like the coldest is -5 at night.
Sure.
And then
I just wondered if you were in altitudes that might see.
Absolutely. We'll get some snow probably by end of November, American Thanksgiving. It will probably melt again by mid-December, and we'll get snow at Christmas. It snows without fail every year, sort of Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Very sweet. Snow for the holidays might melt by February. So it's not like an intense winter, and then we'll have another snowfall or two. So it sort of goes on for a few weeks and then melts because it's still Southern California.
Okay.
People steal snow. They drive up here, pack it in garbage bags, and try and bring it back to the city. I think failing to understand how snow works. I imagine everyone arriving back in Los Angeles at the beach and opening it up
water
and it's
bags.
This bag of water. Yeah.
Maybe that's the purpose. Maybe they're just it's part of a drought prevention thing.
Drought prevention. I'm gonna go back. I'll
just take garbage bags of water.
Yeah, that's people.
Interesting.
I don't know. It'd be fun. Bring some snow back for the kids.
That's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's honestly, I think so. It's really interesting 4-season climate. There's a lot of interesting harsh elements up here because it is so remote. We have rattlesnakes. I had a rattlesnake in my yard a week and a half ago. Really intense. They're not like normal rattlesnakes because I know British Columbia, where you are, has rattlesnakes as well. But those are normal rattlesnakes. Those are rattlesnakes that attack the hematology. So they're basically just attacking. They're attacking, not just attacking, but they're attacking your blood. Right. These ones have morphed because they eat the horned lizards up here, so their venom has evolved. So the venom here is very dangerous. It attacks both the blood as well as the nervous system. Wow. So it's more aligned with a cobra venom than a traditional North American rattlesnake venom, making it the most deadliest snake in North America. And I found one in my shed.
It's the deadliest snake in North America?
You won't find more harsher venom than that in North America because of that. The snake itself, now they're avoiding people. I mean, they're only going to strike if truly threatened.
Right.
That's why it's mostly just like drunk testosterone, frat guys that get bitten. I saw one sleeping though on my shed in a rake. The rake was against the wall. It had the little sort of soft part. It was and it was sort of just sleeping. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye as I was tossing some garbage in the shed.
Can I share a picture?
Oh yeah.
Let's make sure here if I
got that. Oh yeah, down. That's it.
There we go. Okay.
That's the rattlesnake that was in my yard.
Look at that. So is that you? You catch that, or did you call someone in for that?
Can we say, for the purposes of the viewers, that I caught it, but I didn't.
Dangerous, Ruben the daring.
Yeah, right. I'm just I'm like one of the Outback guys. What's the crikey, look at the size of this thing. I have a guy I call for that sort of stuff, and so that's rattlesnake is now going to university. It's going for it's going to be studied. It has its venom. It's going to be milked and studied and be part of academia.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, hopefully they take care of it. I'm sure they will. There's probably rules around that. It's
very, very deadly, so I don't really care. It's better it goes to science and anti-venom research, frankly, because they don't understand this venom and get it far away from my property. It's too close for comfort when it's here.
That's exciting times. Okay, so yeah, you things have changed, but a lot of things are still the same for you.
A lot of things are the same.
What are you doing socially? What's your virtual social life look like?
My virtual, this is completely aside from daily, work Zooms, which have an element of socialization on them, admittedly, that's just part of healthy relationships and dynamics in the workplace. So there's a bit of that on Zoom daily. I usually have at least a call every morning with a friend of mine out east, a video call some days. And I'll do that usually. I'll speak to at least one friend once a day through a video call of some kind. It's all right. That's all right. I knew what was happening. You're like, damn this autoplay sound. But no, really, that's sort of what it comes down to, is trying to make some sort of human face-to-face social contact once a day, because I'm not really going out there. And some people are like, well, I'm in the grocery store. I'm like talking to the cashier for 2 minutes. Doesn't count. It counts if we were doing that all day, every day, as part of one of our many things. But as the sole thing we do of our day, no, we need to try a little harder.
Have those interactions changed?
No. I just feel so much sort of empathy for retail workers, what we're now referring to as essential workers, both in terms of the pay structure and how our society scales that. And we're trying to give them this hero crowning, you're essential, but truly, let's just compensate them. Let's pay them well. We don't need to give them this overly flattering language. Let's just make sure they're properly paid and adequately compensated for the work they're doing, and they could do it as safely as possible and stay protected. Honestly, so I have the same interactions. It's a little bit of small talk. Am I trying any more than usual? No, because I feel bad. It's a job. They don't need to try with every asshole trying to make extra conversation because they're isolated. That's, oh my God. Just see a therapy. Go see a therapist once a week if you can. There's all sorts of great services. I have a therapist. See your therapist. That's what it's about.
There's more and more services now, I think.
There is, and they're doing fairly well, I think, at this point. But a lot of people also, because of the unfortunate situation with employment, have lost benefits that would have provided or paid into that. So they've had to stop seeing therapists as well, because they no longer have the benefits, which is very unfortunate, because this is the time, if any, where, obviously all the stressors are coming out to this real sort of precipice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And we talked about that at the beginning a bit. Like, that's kind of, there's all these things that are being done. Or happening, that need us to do more. I don't know. I guess for me, I never stopped working at work. like physically at work. I've been home a couple times for a few days or a week here and there when I wasn't feeling well, and I, called the boss Sunday night and said, "Hey, listen, I think I'll work from home tomorrow." Of course.
So you were able to work. You just at that point were doing it remotely when you were home that week or two.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I just wasn't, I was kind of like feeling off. And in any other year, I would have gone to work until it was like, oh no, I'm sick. Let's stay home. And then, that one time was essentially had 2 days of feeling a little bit off at home. And then by the third day, I was like, oh yeah, I'm off my feet kind of thing. Got tested right away, just, regular old bronchitis kind of thing. And it was fine. But I think for me, probably what's happened a little bit more is that at the very beginning, when this all started, there was sort of this being at work. There was sort of this modeling happening where it was like, we're going to be okay. We're here. We're at work. A lot of our fellow workers weren't there. But we needed to keep going. There's different types of anxiety happening around the fear of catching COVID and, just even where jobs lay and all that stuff. And to continue modeling, that kind of eventually took a bit of a toll, I think. And so that underlining kind of unadmitted duress or stress, blessed to be having a job. Like in a million years, I would never complain about that. It was just at some point now, it's like, we're talking about Dr. Bonnie Honey, right? It's like, yeah, maybe I can't wait for the break, right? So
I mean, I think to your point, you're working at a time when people were not working. Everyone was forced to stay home. Everything had sort of shut down and you were still working. And there's a weird feeling with that. There's that heightened anxiety that we all had at that point. Some of it rational, some of it not. But I think what you were saying, and I think this is what's really important, is that as leaders, we have to model certain behavior, but we also have to go in it with a certain level of positivity and confidence. And it's hard to do that once you hit that wall of burnout as well.
And you gotta take care of yourself, efforts.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even the hero labeling you're talking about in terms of the essential workers. So, someone asked me about that. I was in another chat with a friend of mine, Steve. He was doing some podcasts around the topic early on. And he was like, yeah, the essential workers are heroes. And I didn't know how I felt about the word hero. And I thought about my own employees and like how much pride I have in them and how amazing they are and how how much gratitude I have around their attitudes. And I don't know, like maybe just my kind of old school growing up, like a hero is like someone who goes to war, but I don't disagree with any of your points. Let's compensate them. Let's take care of people who need to be out there and do things differently. So can
I use that as a transition point? I think that's a transition point because I wanted to talk. You see, that's why you're the pro. I wanted to talk about a little bit about a basic income, particularly about the possibility of basic income coming in Canada. I know there's been some changes to the Serp program, which stands for something I don't know, but you could probably tell me. Canadian. I know the C's for Canada. Canadian something. Canadian employment.
I'm just changing my
response benefit.
Benefit. I think the B's definitely benefit.
Response benefit. That works. Okay. I'm in California. I'm doing okay. I'm trying to get through this. I'm Canadian, being pseudo-Canadian. I have a Tim Hortons coffee here and a Molson, and I'm confused about my sense of identity. I also have I'm kidding.
It's a Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So before we start talking about this, I want to disclaim I haven't been watching the news, so I'm not really super educated in some of this. So I'm open to having a discussion here. But even starting with Serp, I just knew it was called Serp. So I have no excuses. I should know better.
It's all right. I think that's important to admit what we're not as up to speed on, and I'm not super up to speed on Serp. I know that it's been a program that some friends and family have been able to take advantage of in this time of economic uncertainty, of living and working in Canada, or had been working in Canada. And I'm happy it was there. It's a lot better in contrast than what the American program provided of $1,200 if you were impacted. That
Right.
is not monthly, by the way. That was
One
just a
time.
lump sum payment of $1,200. That wasn't new money, by the way. That's just a tax credit, a credit that you'll be getting on your upcoming taxes. So
Right.
you'll get the money now. It's sort of like getting a paycheck advance, but thinking that it's like new money. That's just going to hit you later. You take that advance today, you're like, why is my check so small? Well, it's the same thing. So anyway, that's what they did here. In Canada, they're phasing it out. They've removed a lot of I think my biggest concern up there in particular, and I do have a higher standard for Canada because I think that they have the possibility of doing better. I have this very realistic expectation sort of as where America's at versus where Canada's at and what its possibilities are and how it's already ingrained within the social democracy sort of ethos for a lot of things. So, okay, Serbs are there. It's great. Why did we remove in BC in particular, for example, where you are and where I have a place, why did we remove the eviction protection right now? Like, not much has changed in terms of the economy. People still don't have their job. Like, not much has changed. And they've just been like, okay, as of September, I think it's gone. Serp is being lifted. And it's like,
that's scheduled to expire anyway. That was a temporary measure, I think.
The eviction thing was a temporary measure that they kept extending. But at some point, you're going to need to make some sense of this.
Sure.
I think. And just lifting it unilaterally because they're like, well, it's been long enough. Nothing's changed, but it's been long enough. And we don't want our economy to crumble. But it really makes me nervous, especially for a lot of the people in Vancouver and in the cities, Victoria, who economically are really they've always been teetering on the edge. And that's so many people because, Vancouver in particular is such an expensive city and the wages aren't, up to speed with where they are. But to me, some sort of basic income for all Canadians makes sense. And I know that there's been getting a little bit more traction regarding that in Canada. And it seems like, if not now, when? This seems like an opportune time to transition from Serb. It seems like the Liberals might be putting some momentum behind it. I haven't been particularly a fan of well, I'm not a big fan of any party, I suppose, in particular, some more so than others. But I don't identify with one party specifically. But if they were to move forward with that, I think that would be a very positive thing, a great thing for Canadians in a way that they haven't exercised in several decades, almost since the introduction of socialized medicine. That would be like the next great benefit for Canada to really continue evolving as a country and ensuring some general security for all.
So educate me a bit here. How do you sustain basic income?
Oh, I'm loving these questions. So we have this. I've read.
I'm not challenging you. I actually just it's
no. It's a good question. It's a great question. It really is.
For a reason, right? Because the money's almost out according to them, kind of thing. So,
well, first of all, most of the money that is provided through a program, if you were to do a basic income, is reinvested into the economy. No one is hoarding wealth at that level. So it's actually creating incredible economic stimulus on a monthly basis. That in itself is a great way to justify it because a lot of that is simply going back into taxes. That's taxes from the business itself, employment taxes, sales tax. There's multiple levels of taxation that's coming. But for the amount we're proposing here, which is, let's say, somewhere between $18,000 and $22,000 a year, no one's encouraged at that point to say, I'm not working. It's so everyone can have a level up into their quality of living, and it's no longer viewed as a handout. People who are on disability might get a top up on that, a disability credit. So it tops up that. But disability, for example, as a basic socialized program in Canada wouldn't need to be a program because it would just be a top up from what you're already earning through basic income.
Okay.
Because obviously, if you are qualifying for disability, you have some expenses that are greater due to the medical condition, which is quite common. So they'll, depending on what that is, they'll have a different structure. But we have the money through taxes already. We have the money. It's more as a society how we choose what we choose as priorities. Because, for example, as a society, we've already made the decision we want to keep the homeless count every year is around 4,000 in Vancouver. We've made a decision we want to keep people homeless. Well, no, we haven't. As a society, I never made that decision. Well, we have, because we know the math. We know that through policing and everything else, it's about $80,000, $90,000 a year Canadian per person that's homeless by the time you factor in first responder, police calls, hospital visits, what that costs on the system at every level.
Mm-hmm.
To build housing for someone, give them primary care so they could avoid using the emergency room for things that have just now escalated, reduces violence in communities. All of these costs factored in, it's about $40,000 to build housing and give someone food every year. We literally just fiscally could build this and it would be cheaper and better for our society, but we choose not to.
Right.
So we have the money. It's just
that's
priorities.
a common argument, right? Like it's like these people get to a point where they get in jail and then they cost this amount of money, and it actually preventative measures are always a lot more effective and affordable.
But I'm not even talking about incarceration.
No, I know, but
I'm just talking like even way before.
Yeah, the people, I think, in terms of that argument, I'm not talking about. And Vancouver ventured into that a little bit over the last few years. There's quite a bit of I can't remember the name of the label, but like affordable housing built in, I think there's 4 different locations now, and they're showing successful in terms of the way they measure the return on the investment, I guess, in terms of societal, not just financial.
Yeah, no, that is true. There is certainly more what is dubbed, quote, affordable housing being built. But my frustration with Vancouver is that they've dubbed affordable housing when I last looked at a number that many people who truly are on the fringes of the income brackets at the lowest level would not consider affordable. It's affordable in a middle class sense of affordable, being that I think, what was 1 bedroom? Do you know the number?
Well, this is probably I shouldn't have used that phrase because I'm referring to specifically the modular housing that they built for folks who are in more dire situations. So just give me a second here.
Yeah, but I think the key, I know what that sort of housing program, I think any housing is good housing, but we need to build permanent long-term housing, not transitional housing, which is continually I see being built. And if we're not building 500 or 1,000 units at a time, we're thinking too small, and they're vanity projects at the end of the day.
I think
out them in the media.
I think that's what the whole point of the first 4 or 5 goes at it was, to probably figure out how they can manage the projects. And I think that their intention is to build larger. I'm just looking at a couple articles here, but I think their intention was to build larger projects later on. Yeah, so like affordable housing is different than what I'm talking about, but I'm seeing an article here for people under 63,000 a year, which is, not a lot in Vancouver, but it's probably dire in Vancouver, but I'm talking about SROs, a single residential occupancy homes. So that's a little bit different than affordable housing. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but I just wanted to clarify for myself.
Oh, okay. No, that's a different program entirely. I thought, sorry, I got stuck on the affordable hook, and
of course, everybody, that's the trigger for just about everybody here.
Yeah, like affordable. I mean, sure. But I mean, I'd love to see, from my perspective, I'd love to see a true political revolution in Vancouver at some point at the municipal level. No comment from you. You don't have to comment. I'm just nodding. No comment. And I mean, because I think that's where a lot of the work could happen. Certainly the province needs to be involved, but we need a much more innovative, don't drag our feet, be bold city, because that's how they marketed themselves to the world. But they haven't been, in my view, as bold as the marketing. Canada's greatest international project has been its marketing campaign on the world stage, and to that, it's incredible.
Wait, say that again. Sorry.
Canada's greatest project on the world stage has been how it's marketed itself, and I think all of Canada. Canada's done a great international marketing campaign.
Gotcha.
Most of it's based on sort of like half-truths or stereotypes, but it has a wonderful reputation because of this marketing campaign. So if we could even live up partially to the marketing that it's created, I think it will be very good for all of its people. And I mean that in a true way.
I think a lot of that's coming to light when, as topics like Indigenous topics that are coming to the surface right now, racism topics that are coming to the surface right now. I think a lot of that's kind of being uncovered. Like some of our greatest claims are actually just half truths. And that's a challenge. That's a tough thing to kind of process, but it's a great thing to look at and make sure that we reflect on and make sure that we change that direction.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I always feel like when I land at the airport at YVR that I'm in some sort of like First Nations Disneyland installation because I have to go through that full like wildlife sound thing,
Yeah,
and it's like the
yeah.
canoe and the Canadian geese sound and the heron and the whole thing. And then you go to the candle line and they have a few other pieces, but it's still very like it feels like a Disney
I've never
representation.
been there when the sounds are on. Actually, that's interesting.
Oh, I've taken a
I
lot
know.
of videos. Every time I land, I'll do an
Okay.
Instagram story. Yeah.
I can tell, or I can understand what you're talking about, though. That kind of feeling of coming in. It's like this sort of look how great we represent things, and I don't think we're where we need to be, probably.
Yeah, it seems like they try and sort of herald that in a way that is undeserving of the real meaningful action. And I'm not the one to comment on it, but that's my experience. I always feel like as a Canadian versus how I would feel looking at it if I was an international tourist landing before customs, not really knowing any better or knowing any closer to what the real sort of story is here and true reconciliation and how far we are still from achieving anything remotely resembling that. I say we because I'm Canadian still. I see myself as Canadian.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's why I say we. Just to clarify, you're like, who's we?
Well, yeah, and it's a good thing that we're all quite, well, not everybody is, but I'm glad we're having conversations where we're questioning these things. And it's one of the things when we started this conversation, you talked about the whole American fire thing and the Trump vandalism on the Canadians' Texas plated car, and I would say what we were talking earlier about the things that have been disheartening us the most or being challenging for us. For me, it is the human thing. The division that's happening. I wear a mask when I go out, but I actually feel very distraught about it, kind of, because I'm a human connector. I'm a socializer, and just seeing faces covered kind of is disturbing. But then, I haven't been watching news because I am disturbed by people painting that guy's car. How assumptive, and like where's that coming from? Like, how can people even go there? Like, just, and at the same time, I check myself because all summer long I've been like, oh, there's an Alberta plate. There's an Alberta plate. There's an Alberta plate. Right.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel if you saw Texas like they did?
And that's on me. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was kind of angry at myself for counting how many Alberta plates I saw, and I even commented on once out loud. So
I do that every summer, COVID aside. I'm like, oh, fucking hell. They're here again.
Well, because on one hand, I want to say, let's not disconnect. Let's not be departed and individualized. On the other hand, I'm not like I'm a realist, so I'm not like thinking, oh, we should all be one and connected. But the one thing that hit me was the pictures from 9/11 this past week, where people were posting stuff from the kind of the anniversary of it, the recognizing of its date passing, and there was a few that were posted, and it was like everybody helping each other through the damage and through all this stuff, and everybody came together. Not 100%. There was quite a bit of racism that probably came out of that event, and I'm sure that there was a lot of people from different regions of the world that really felt that. But and so there's always this kind of dichotomy of viewing things. So I try to stay on the positive side. I want to keep things positive in the terms of not like everything's okay, rosy sunshine, but inciting that kind of forward movement towards how do we turn somebody's car being spray painted? How can we change the direction of that? How can we go into a different direction? So yeah, just keep reflecting on it. I'm not watching a lot of news, and I'm not trying to bury my head in the ground. I try to connect with people who are talking about things like this, and that's where I'm trying to keep in touch. And I am what I like talking about you is we have very different views often, but not conflicting views necessarily. I actually am I'm that asshole talking to clerks more. But I'm not like, but I'm not laying out my whole life story. I'm trying to just be like, how are you today? Living the dream, and then there's a little chuckle, and then we kind of make a laugh and just kind of lighten it up. Because I think with tire tensions, probably customer service people are seeing a lot more, and you're a customer service expert. They're seeing a lot more, like, what's the word? I don't want to use conflict, but challenging behaviors and characteristics, and
customer service is being used, in my view and experience, as an outlet for our collective frustrations, and they are the channel of which a lot of it's being directed at through ordinary day-to-day interactions in numbers that they've never seen before across the entire industry.
Yeah. As you know, I've got a background in customer service too. I used to work in telecoms. I cannot imagine. Oh, I'll give you a little story. Do you mind if I tell you a story? I called my telecom.
It's your show.
I did. Is it? I called my telecom the other day, and I literally I'm on Freedom, right? So Freedom works. They have a home central network, and if you go outside of that, which is pretty much anywhere outside of Greater Vancouver, you go into the roaming, what they call nationwide. My plan doesn't have nationwide. We went
Doesn't
camping.
sound like much freedom. I got to be honest. I got to just stop you there. The name is already problematic. Okay.
I've been very happy with them. Let's start with that. I simply called because my bill got high while we were camping. I simply called to ask if they could suggest what plan I can move to. And the poor agent on the line, it was like I was yelling at him. And I literally was like, because I said, "Oh, I'd like to go on one of these plans." And he said, "No, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Those are just for new customers." And I was like, "Oh." And I said it in this voice, "Is there any chance that there's a way I could get on it?" And he went, "No, I can't do that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't get it." I was like, "Okay, no problem. I didn't see any other plans. Could you just show me where the plans are I'm allowed to look at?" And he didn't. I found it. I was browsing when we talked. So I went, "Oh, here are them. Okay, so let's take a look at these two plans." And I said, "Is there one that has more nationwide?" They were all kind of giving 500 megabytes. And he's like, "I can't change the nationwide. I can't change the megabytes. I can't change the megabytes." So, "No, I'm just asking if there's a difference."
Sounds like you got this neurotic mess of an agent.
Well, no, I just felt like I could tell he literally
taken so much negativity and abuse. Yeah.
And he's literally, I'm just looking for a suggestion. And he went, "Maybe you should talk to my manager." And I was like, "Well, I can, but I'm okay with you just telling me which one of these is, And he's like, "Well, maybe my manager can change the megabytes." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll talk to your manager." And the manager came on, and he was high strung. He was very polite. They were both polite, but they're very high strung. The other guy kind of just shut me down on everything I said. And I was like, "That's not even what I asked for. Don't shut me down on something I didn't ask for."
Right.
But I just stepped back. He literally said, the manager, "I can give you $5 off your bill for the next 6 months." I was like, "But I'm not looking for, I'm not complaining. And I actually said, I want to be very clear. I'm not an angry customer. I've been very happy with you guys." And then he said, "I can give you $10 off the bill."
But it's still not resolving the reason for your call.
Well, this is what I did. I said, "Hey, you know what? I see it. It's $15 a month to add nationwide." And I was like, "We won't be traveling beyond January. You know what? I'll go with that. I'll just be paying $5 for nationwide." And then that's what we ended up doing. But I was just really surprised at how quickly they were like
crazy.
And I'm going to be honest. There's been a time or two in the distant past, because I know how that phone call stuff works, because I've been in the industry for a long time. I've used that knowledge to kind of, get to where I was going, and maybe even been abrupt in the past. That I repent now. But I definitely was not doing that.
Trying to get to retention, the tricks to get to the retention department. Right. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Literally, my other phone's ringing from Shaw.
Great offer. Can you hold for a moment?
That's right. Let me see what the guy's offering. Anyway, I think it's just that story was a little bit of an example of the thing you're talking about. It's just, I'm sure there's, and that's probably across the board. So when I do get up to a person, if they look like they're accepting, and I don't push it if they aren't, I just throw a little joke in, or try to be light. And I'm doing it differently. I'm not doing necessarily a lot more. So that's the aspect of that.
I just heard from our friend Robbie, who was on our first program. He writes and he sends his regards and regrets. An hour and a bit ago, he said, actually 2 hours ago, he writes, "I want to join for our chat this evening." He goes, "Potentially in transit now. I let you know in 15. Very Robbie language. And then 2 hours later, I get, "Yo, sir, apologies for the delay. I got sucked into satiating my hunger kitchen prep styles. I must perforce take a rain check this week. Take a rain check this week. I trust to the talkie." So we are definitely doing the talkie, and he's trusting accurately, and he missed, and he can join us on the next program.
We've certainly missed his eloquent way of communicating. That's definitely been missed.
Yeah, he was sitting in the very sort of ambient lighting last time. That was nice. Is there a closing thought, a final thought this evening that you have and want to share with anyone as they're entering a new week?
Oh, I don't know, man. I guess I want people to take care of themselves. I want them to know they're doing well. I want them to know that they're doing the best they can. I'm proud of them. And I want them to actually just reflect on what's going on in the world and find a way to find love in your heart. And also at the same time, deal with the things going on. Take action, take steps, but find the energy. And I'm going to promise myself that I'm going to take it slower and try to make sure that I'm all here.
Good. Those are good words of affirmation, I think.
Thanks.
I returned to work last week after a 2-week vacation, and my major thought going into the week is how can I extend this vacation through work as much as possible, not by slacking on my work, but take that vacation energy back to work and continue that. And I felt like I was very successful at that last week, not taking any of my work related stresses into my home or even really taking it on too much during the day, understanding what needs to be done at work, but also making sure that I'm listening to myself and taking a lot of frequent breaks throughout my workday and pausing as needed. So taking some of that vacation, low stress energy into the work week, and I'm planning on taking that into this week as well, since it never fully left last week, and just making sure to refocus on what is important, both professionally and personally, and not get too worked up by anything. It's a crazy world right now. So just, we can all just do what we can, whatever that means for each of us.
That's great. Yeah, very good. Just thinking about that a bit. So you're back to work on Monday?
Back to work Monday. Had a 4-day week last week, and that was my first week at work in 17 days. But we're doing the Sunday night thing, right? That's what we're doing now.
I only wrote on the banner Sundays because we hadn't really solidified that. I know that mornings.
I like that there's no time. We're here on Sundays, and we're here most weeks.
Listen, I know most of the people listening, there's only 3 of them right now. I also want to give a shout out to Sandy. Thanks for tuning in for most of the show here. And I'm not sure if you're seeing anyone from your end. It doesn't show me who's watching on my personal stream, so I just see Twitch and some of the business sites here. But anyway, yeah, I know that Sunday mornings would be preferable, but we'll see where we're going. I know. Listen, most of our listeners are just hanging around doing nothing on Sundays. Pretty soon it'll be raining. They're gonna need this. So, I really appreciated the conversation tonight, Ruben. Thanks so much for all your thoughts and education.
As did I. Thank you, Mark D.
And we will see you soon. Keep it positive. We don't have any music.